YNW Melly, 2018 double murder case. In October 2018, Miramar, Florida police accused Jamel Demons, also known as YNW Melly, of shooting and killing his friends, Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr. and Anthony YNW Saxter Williams, then staging the scene to look like a drive-by. He was arrested in 2019 and pleaded not guilty. The first trial in Broward County ended in a mistrial in July 2023 after the jury deadlocked. Subsequent months brought pretrial motions over discovery, alleged witness tampering, and courtroom management. The case did not return to a quick verdict. Through 2024-2025, hearings pushed the schedule back. In parallel, co-defendant Cortland YNW Bortland Henry, initially charged as an accomplice, faced his own trial. In September 2025, multiple outlets reported that Bortland accepted a plea deal to avoid trial after the state had discussed offers, reportedly in the mid-teens. Local news coverage even confirmed the plea and continued delays in Melly's retrial timeline. Industry press summarized that Melly's retrial may not begin until 2027, pending further motions, counsel changes, and docket congestion. As of now, Melly remained charged and awaiting retrial, not convicted on the 2018 murders, while the co-defendant's plea introduced new dynamics for any future testimony. Jay-Z, 1999 stabbing of Lance Rivera. On December 1st, 1999, Sean Jay-Z Carter stabbed record executive Lance Rivera at Manhattan's Kit Kat Club after an industry event. Police arrested Carter days later on felony charges, including assault. Over the next year, the case moved through New York's courts as lawyers negotiated and press-tracked developments closely, given Carter's rising profile around Volume 3. Life and times of S. Carter and the Dynasty. In October 2001, reporting indicated a plea deal was imminent. On December 6, 2001, Carter pleaded guilty to third-degree assault and received 3 years probation. The more serious weapon assault counts were not imposed at sentencing under the deal. This was the outcome, a misdemeanor-level plea resulting in probation, not a state prison term, and no trial verdict on higher charges. That disposition remained the settled record. There was no murder allegation in the case. Carter publicly addressed the incident in interviews and on record over the years, but the legal facts did not change after the 2001 sentencing. ASAP Rocky, 2019 Stockholm street fight. On June 30, 2019, Rakim, ASAP Rocky Mayers, and 2 associates were involved in a street altercation in Stockholm with 19-year-old Mustafa Jafari. Swedish authorities detained Mayers in July, pending trial, prompting international attention and diplomatic commentary. Rocky argued self-defense, saying his group had been harassed and followed. Prosecutors charged him with assault, causing bodily harm. On August 14, 2019, a Swedish court found him guilty of assault, but imposed a conditional, suspended sentence, meaning no additional prison time if he did not reoffend in Sweden. The court also ordered damages to Jafari, 12,100 SEK. Soon after, the prosecutor declined to appeal, leaving the conviction and suspended sentence in place. Afroman, 2015 on-stage punch. Arrest, apology, civil settlement. On February 17, 2015, during a Biloxi, Mississippi performance, Afroman, Joseph Foreman, punched a woman who had come onto the stage dancing near him. The blow knocked her to the floor. Police halted the show and arrested him on an assault charge. The incident was captured on video and spread quickly online. Afroman apologized within days and said he would pursue anger management counseling. Criminally, he faced a misdemeanor path. Civilly, the victim sued. In May 2018, Billboard reported that Afroman agreed to pay $65,000 to settle the civil lawsuit. The settlement resolved the damages claim, while the video continued to circulate as a cautionary reference in live show security discussions. The facts were straightforward and uncontested by later reporting: an onstage battery captured on camera, an arrest and public apology, and a later civil settlement in the mid-5 figures. Soulja Boy, 2008 home invasion shooting story. In late 2008, Soulja Boy Tella M. DeAndre Way told interviewers he had shot an intruder during an attempted home invasion at his Atlanta residence. Over the years, the story resurfaced regularly in podcasts and radio spots, with Soulja offering dramatic details about the break-in and shots fired. It was a rare instance of an artist giving account of a real occurrence of having exchanged gunfire in self-defense at home, just like something straight out of a movie. In 2023, several outlets circulated purported paperwork and a written statement attributed to a person present, alleging that Soulja hid and did not return fire, framing his long-told story as exaggerated. There's been a lot of huge debates about what really happened that night. Crucially, no prosecutor brought a public case against Soulja for the incident, and no independent court record has confirmed the exact sequence of shots or who fired them. Blueface, 2022 Las Vegas strip club shooting. In October 2022, Blueface, Jonathan Porter, was involved in a shooting outside a Las Vegas strip club after an argument spilled into the street. Surveillance footage circulated online showed a dispute with a man near the club's parking area, followed by gunfire as the man tried to leave in a pickup. Police later arrested Blueface in November 2022, initially booking him on an attempted murder allegation tied to the incident. The case drew wide attention because of the video, the public nature of the arrest, and his ongoing visibility in music and on social media. Over the following months, the case moved through Clark County Court, while more details emerged from reports and filings. Rather than push the trial on the top count, prosecutors and the defense negotiated a resolution. In 2023, Blueface entered a plea to reduce charges, battery and discharging a firearm at or into an occupied structure, dropping the attempted murder exposure that had headlined his arrest. The plea preserved the state's position that criminal conduct occurred while acknowledging evidentiary and litigation risks on both sides. In early 2024, the judge sentenced him to probation, reported as up to 3 years, with standard conditions, including staying out of trouble and complying with restrictions common in firearms-related cases. Subsequent headlines focused on compliance, travel permissions, and sporadic separate matters, but none of that changed the bottom line for the strip club shooting. The court accepted a plea to lesser counts and imposed probation. Cassidy, 2005 Philadelphia shooting, 2006 involuntary manslaughter conviction. In April 2005, a confrontation outside a house in Philadelphia escalated into gunfire. One man, Desmond Hawkins, was shot and killed. 2 others were wounded. Barry Cassidy Reese was charged in connection with the shooting, and early filings included a murder count. Witness statements shifted over time, and as pre-trial hearings unfolded, the case narrowed. By the time it reached a bench trial before a judge, the state's theory focused less on intentional killing and more on Cassidy's role in introducing guns to a volatile standoff that turned deadly. In January 2006, the court found Cassidy guilty of involuntary manslaughter and aggravated assault, distinguishing the conduct from intentional murder. Reporting from the time emphasized that the judge viewed the death as the product of reckless or grossly negligent behavior, rather than premeditated malice. That distinction mattered. It acknowledged the homicide occurred while rejecting the legal elements needed for higher degrees of murder. The verdict also included weapons-related findings consistent with the state's case theory. Sentencing followed with a term commonly summarized as 11.5 to 23 months in county custody, plus probation. Cassidy served the custodial time and resumed recording afterward, and the case remained a touchpoint in interviews and retrospectives about his career. Boosie Badazz, 2009 Baton Rouge homicide case. In 2010, Louisiana prosecutors indicted Torrance Boosie Hatch on a first-degree murder charge in the 2009 killing of Terry Boyd in Baton Rouge. The indictment arrived alongside a broader set of drug and gun allegations that painted him, in the state's view, as central to violent and criminal conduct. The murder count carried a potential life sentence without parole. Pre-trial proceedings stretched into 2011 and 2012, with prosecutors previewing witness testimony and recorded materials, and the defense insisting the state could not reliably tie Boosie to ordering or committing the killing. In May 2012, a jury acquitted Boosie of the murder. Coverage from the courthouse stressed how the state's case failed to meet the burden of proof on the homicide, even as the separate drug case produced an 8-year sentence, imposed earlier, that he continued to serve. The split result, acquittal on murder, prison time on the drug case, created persistent confusion online. But in court records, the distinction was clear. The acquittal ended the homicide prosecution and removed the possibility of a life sentence. Boosie was released from prison in 2014 on the non-murder sentence and returned to music. The murder acquittal remained a fixed point in later discussions about reliability of informants, cooperation agreements, and the evidentiary hurdles of trying to prove a murder beyond a reasonable doubt. DaBaby, 2018 Walmart shooting. In November 2018, DaBaby, Jonathan Kirk, shot and killed 19-year-old Jalen Craig during a fight inside a Walmart in Huntersville, North Carolina. Police questioned him at the scene. He told investigators he fired to protect himself and his family. Prosecutors did not bring a homicide charge, and the case closed with authorities effectively accepting his self-defense claim. He later picked up a misdemeanor charge unrelated to homicide. Local TV and national outlets summarized that initial outcome at the time. In April 2022, Rolling Stone published previously unseen surveillance video from inside the store that showed the moments leading up to the shooting. The footage appeared to show DaBaby throwing the first visible punch in the altercation with Craig's friend just before the gunshot, prompting renewed scrutiny of the original self-defense account. Charlotte media recapped the magazine's reporting and re-upped case details for viewers who had followed the brief 2018 coverage. The 2022 publication did not create new criminal charges. It reframed the event in the public eye by challenging key parts of DaBaby's narrative. Remy Ma, 2007 shooting, 2008 conviction, assault, weapons, attempted coercion, 8-year sentence. In July 2007, Remy Ma, Reminisce Smith, shot and wounded Makeda Barnes-Joseph after a dispute over missing money following a night out in Manhattan. She turned herself in and faced charges that included attempted murder, first-degree assault, and weapons possession. The shooting left the victim with serious injuries and multiple surgeries, and the incident quickly became a national story given Remy Ma's profile from Terror Squad and Lean Back. At trial in early 2008, a New York jury acquitted her of attempted murder, but convicted her of first-degree assault, weapons possession, and attempted coercion. On May 13, 2008, the judge sentenced her to 8 years in prison, citing her conduct during and after the shooting. International and U.S. outlets reported the verdict and sentence the same day, providing a clear timeline that has remained stable in follow-up coverage. Remy Ma served roughly 6 years and was released in 2014. Civil litigation followed on the victim's side. Shyne, 99. Club New York shooting, 2001 conviction. On December 27, 1999, a dispute inside Club New York in Times Square escalated, and 3 bystanders were wounded by gunfire. Shyne, Moses Michael Levi Barrow, who was at the club with Sean Diddy Combs and Jennifer Lopez, was arrested and charged. Prosecutors said multiple people brandished weapons. Shyne maintained he acted in self-defense. Ballistics testimony at trial suggested more than one caliber was involved, while the state argued Shyne's shot struck the victims. The case drew intense coverage because Combs was tried alongside him on related gun and bribery counts. After a 7-week trial, the jury convicted Shyne of assault, reckless endangerment, and criminal possession of a weapon. He was acquitted of attempted murder. On June 1, 2001, he received a 10-year sentence. Combs and his bodyguard were acquitted of their charges. Shyne later served most of his term at Clinton Correctional Facility. Following his 2009 release, Shyne was deported to Belize, later re-emerging publicly as a politician. The underlying facts relevant to the incident remained unchanged. 3 people were shot and injured. Shyne was convicted on assault and weapons counts and sentenced to a decade. Combs was acquitted. Retrospectives and new interviews continued to revisit the case, but none altered the core record from the 2001 verdict and sentenced Tory Lanez, 2020 Hollywood Hills shooting of Megan Thee Stallion, 2023 10-year sentence. On July 12, 2020, an argument that began after a gathering in the Hollywood Hills ended when Megan Thee Stallion was shot in the feet. Police stopped an SUV. Daystar Peterson, Tory Lanez, was arrested that night on a gun charge, and broader felony counts followed. In December 2022, a Los Angeles jury found Lanez guilty of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, carrying a loaded unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. On August 8, 2023, the court sentenced Lanez to 10 years in state prison. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office summarized the verdict and sentenced the same day. Major outlets reported victim impact statements from Megan and the defense's unsuccessful bid for a lighter outcome. Appeals and post-trial motions were discussed publicly, but the conviction and sentence remained in force. In 2024-2025, a judge extended a protective order in Megan's favor to 2030, reflecting ongoing safety concerns asserted by the victim. None of those later docket moves changed the core facts. Lanez was convicted by a jury for the 2020 shooting and is serving a 10-year sentence. Tay-K, 2016 home invasion murder, 55-year sentence. 2025 second murder conviction. Tamor McIntyre, Tay-K, first drew national attention as a fugitive after cutting an ankle monitor in 2017. While on the run, he released The Race. In 2019, a Texas jury convicted him of murder for his role in a 2016 home invasion that killed Ethan Walker. He received 55 years. That case established the long prison term he is already serving. A separate indictment alleged that, while he was a fugitive in 2017, McIntyre participated in the killing of photographer Mark Anthony Saldivar in Bexar County. In April 2025, a second jury found him guilty of murder, not capital murder. Reporting noted he now faces an additional sentence ranging from 5 to 99 years to be served on top of the existing term. Multiple reputable outlets covered the verdict. Those outcomes left McIntyre with one murder conviction tied to the 2016 robbery and a second, later conviction tied to the 2017 shooting during his flight. The Game, 2015 pickup game punch of off-duty officer, 2017 no contest plea. In March 2015, The Game, Jayceon Taylor, punched an off-duty LAPD officer during a recreational basketball game at a Los Angeles high school. The officer later filed a civil suit, and prosecutors brought criminal charges. Video clips circulated showing the on-court contact and the punch. On February 6, 2017, The Game pleaded no contest in the criminal case. News coverage reported the court imposed community service and other conditions. The plea resolved the criminal exposure from the incident. The civil case proceeded on a separate track. From a factual standpoint, the case was not a shooting or weapons matter. It was an assault arising from a sports altercation with an off-duty officer. The legal resolution: no contest plea and sentence. Tupac Shakur, 1993. Atlanta incident with off-duty police. On October 31st, 1993, Tupac Shakur fired at two off-duty Atlanta police officers during a late-night confrontation near his hotel. He was arrested the next morning and charged with aggravated assault. Early reports said Tupac believed the men were attacking a black motorist and that one officer drew a gun first. Crucially, he did not know they were police until after the fact. At a December 1st, 1993 hearing, details emerged that shifted the case's trajectory. The officers were reportedly intoxicated, and the guns in their possession were later found to have been stolen from an evidence locker in a nearby county. With credibility issues around the officers and the self-defense claim on the table, prosecutors declined to take the case forward, and the charges were dropped. G-Dep, 1993. Harlem shooting, 2010 confession, 2012 conviction. Travell Coleman, known as G-Dep, walked into an NYPD precinct in December 2010 and told detectives he had shot a man during a robbery attempt in Harlem back in 1993. He said the memory had weighed on him for years and that he wanted to take responsibility. Detectives reopened the cold case and matched his account to the unsolved killing of John Henkel, who had been shot during a struggle near East 114th Street and 1st Avenue. Coleman signed statements describing the encounter and the firearm. From that point forward, the case turned on whether his confession would stand up in court and whether the statements were voluntary and reliable after so many years. At trial, the defense moved to suppress the confession, arguing that his long-term drug use and the passage of time affected what he believed had happened. The court denied suppression. Prosecutors emphasized the level of detail in his statements and the alignment with the old file. There was no physical evidence newly recovered from the scene. The prosecution relied on the confession, the original investigative record, and testimony that tied the narrative together. The jury heard that the victim had been shot in the chest at close range during a robbery attempt. In 2012, a New York jury found G-Dep guilty of second-degree murder. A judge sentenced him to 15 years to life. He expressed remorse and did not retract the core of his admission. Appeals did not undo the verdict. The case remained unusual because it began with the defendant volunteering information about a homicide that police had not connected to him. C murder, 2002 nightclub killing. Overturned 2003 verdict. 2009 reconviction, Corey Miller, known as C murder, faced prosecution for the 2002 shooting death of 16-year-old Steve Thomas at the Platinum Club in Harvey, Louisiana. In 2003, a jury convicted him of second-degree murder, but that verdict was later overturned due to problems unrelated to guilt or innocence. Juror misconduct issues. The state retried the case in 2009. At the second trial, prosecutors alleged Miller was among those who beat and then shot Thomas after a fight inside the crowded venue. The defense argued identification problems and challenged the reliability of eyewitnesses amid chaotic conditions. In August 2009, the jury again returned a guilty verdict for second-degree murder. The judge imposed a mandatory life sentence without parole under Louisiana law. Over the following years, the case continued to generate filings and public advocacy. Some witnesses later recanted, and defense teams argued that the recantations undermined confidence in the verdict. Prosecutors countered that the trial evidence had already been tested in open court, and that later recantations arrived years after the fact, without the safeguards and scrutiny of cross-examination at trial. Appeals and post-conviction efforts did not succeed in vacating the 2009 conviction. The Louisiana courts left the judgment in place. Public attention periodically returned to the case due to celebrity support and coverage about the reliability of eyewitness testimony. None of those developments changed the outcome. The state secured a lawful conviction for the 2002 homicide at the 2009 retrial, and Miller remained under a life without parole sentence. Kevin Gates, 2015 concert assault, fan kicked on stage. 2016 battery conviction. On August 29, 2015, during a club show in Lakeland, Florida, Kevin Gates kicked an 18-year-old woman who had reached toward him from the crowd. Phone video circulated almost immediately and became central evidence. Police investigated, and the Polk County State Attorney's Office filed a misdemeanor battery charge. Gates told the court he reacted because he felt repeatedly grabbed and unsafe, but the state argued the force was unjustified in the circumstances of a ticketed performance with security present. A 6-woman jury deliberated after a one-day trial, and on October 26, 2016, found Gates guilty of battery. A judge sentenced him to 180 days in county jail, with credit, fines, and costs. Local and national outlets reported the exact outcome the same day. The incident did not involve a firearm, but it remained one of the era's most documented on-camera attacks by a rapper on a member of the public, replayed widely in discussions about artist-fan boundaries and venue security. Post-sentence, the case stood as a straightforward criminal judgment. Conviction for battery tied to a kick caught on video. 6 months in local custody. Gates continued releasing music after serving the sentence, but the Lakeland footage persisted online and in legal roundups as the definitive record of what happened, eliminating room for rumor about the basic facts. NBA YoungBoy, 2016, Baton Rouge drive-by case. 2017, plea to aggravated assault with a firearm. In late 2016, Kentrell NBA YoungBoy, Galden, was arrested over a drive-by shooting in Baton Rouge that prosecutors said involved multiple rounds fired from a moving vehicle. Police tied him to an incident on November 2, 2016, and booked him weeks later after an out-of-state arrest and extradition. The case landed while he was still a teenager and immediately colored early coverage of his rise, since it alleged direct participation in gunfire on a public street. In May 2017, Galden pleaded guilty to aggravated assault with a firearm. Entering the plea, he admitted to firing a gun multiple times during the drive-by. The plea reduced exposure from the original attempted murder posture, sometimes mentioned around the arrest. Sentencing conditions and supervision followed as he resumed recording and touring. However, the admitted conduct, firing from a vehicle, remained a matter of record and recurred in profiles that tried to square his output with his legal history.